Good evening. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. Musings upon irrational fears. She who governs has an irrational fear of cockroaches. It is more than a mild feeling of the heebie-jeebies. She rushes from the room, seriously frightened. There is usually a fair bit of screaming, and for some reason I am always nominated to sort it out. She knows that the cockroach is just being a cockroach. It is not after her, but the fear is irrational. She cannot help it. There are all sorts of similar fears that people hold, and to most of us, a lot of them are amusing. My daughter had an irrational fear of worms when she was little. A worm on the path had her squeaking and leaping about. More than two would induce a complete meltdown. Luckily, she's grown out of it. Why it started and what caused it, we cannot deduce. It is certainly not genetic. My sister ate worms when she was a child. The women in my family always tried to counter my questioning of their irrationally held fears by arguing that I had them too. Well, you're afraid of sharks and snakes, they say. Well, actually, I'm fascinated by snakes, and I would argue respectful, not irrationally afraid. If it bit me, then it would bloody hurt and I could die. I believe that to be rational thinking. As for sharks, well, I would hold a similar defence. They are big and strong, swim considerably faster than I do, and have rows of very sharp teeth. I have never been a really confident swimmer and certainly feel out of my depth in very deep water. When one is snorkelling and you swim out over the edge of that huge drop over the continental shelf, I feel uncomfortable. The blue beneath you just disappears. It deepens into a blue that has no end, no visible bottom. I find that quite disconcerting. I have visions of a wide, gaping, tooth-bearing mouth suddenly rushing up at me from the deep. Is that irrational? I do not consider it so. I probably look like a tasty snack from down there in the dark gloom, silhouetted against the light, floundering around out of my natural medium. I am easy pickings for a hungry shark. This thought always leaps into my brain at these moments. That and that bloody theme tune from Jaws. The two combined soon had me heading back into water where the bottom is at least visible. This is performed casually with no outward panic or hysteria, but I do tend to face backward and watch the deep as I do so, paddling in reverse with my head wrestling to get that bloody tune out. I was in the Seychelles a few years ago. I was chatting casually to the Italian mother of a young girl that my daughter had befriended on the beach. As we compared notes on the loveliness of this paradise, her husband emerged from the sea and walked up the beach. Daniel Craig as James Bond emerging from the water should give you the mental picture. All tanned and toned muscle. I felt rather puny, more Basildon Bond than James Bond. White, thin and rather delicate. The Italians are a little prone to macho posturing. It is something in the Latin gene, I believe. Most distasteful, but she who governs seemed thoroughly engaged. Good swim? I inquired. It's a beautiful, he replied in a lilting Italian accent. She who governs later told me that she loved that sing-song accent, so gentle on the ear. The goading fiddle gene is certainly on the X chromosome. I continued politely. Yes, I went snorkeling earlier. Rather beautiful reefs. Did you go over to the right? Around the island, he pointed out to our front. About 100 yards across a shallow lagoon was a small, sand-rimmed island. Picture Bounty Bar adverts. The continental shelf just drops away on the far side. It is amazing. Oh, right. Corals and things to see, I said. Just before. But once over the deep, it is incredible. Sharks are everywhere, even a manta ray. Obviously, I only heard one word. Sharks? What, small ones? Could you tell what types? The tone of my voice was nonchalant, unfazed, casual-like. Yes, bigger ones. Some are reef sharks and tiger sharks. Maybe even a bull shark, I think. Wow. Wow was meant in a, what the fecking hell are you doing? Are you a madman type of way? But stupid male pride morphed it into a, wow, how interesting tone. I think his wife could tell. Women are like that. Predators. She could sense the weakness, the vulnerability. Blood was in her nostrils. You should go with my husband. He loves the sharks, knows a lot about them. He could show you. Could he? Yes, come. I go back out now and I show you. It's something you cannot miss. He was actually smiling enthusiastically. My God, I was cornered. I felt like a Christian in the Colosseum. This Roman was revelling in my discomfort, playing with my very existence. Something I cannot miss. Swimming with bloody sharks. This was most certainly something I was going to miss. I had to think fast. That's awfully kind of you, but I think we're just off to lunch, aren't we, darling? I looked towards she who governs. The pleading look in my eyes, which she later insisted she failed to see, promised any amount of payback she could imagine. Apparently the sun was directly behind me. No, I can wait a while. It sounds fantastic, she said. How could she? She knew exactly how I felt about sharks. If it took the whole holiday and I had to scour the entire island, I would find a bloody cockroach. A cockroach up her nightie in the wee small hours would not be revenge enough. I could not back down. I later tried to explain to my giggling puff adder that this was not macho pride. It was something more important. It was the Gothic line. Thousands of Axis troops defending the back route into Nazi Germany. The Italians may have been the Yellow Berets with their reverse gear-only tanks, but they were dug in. Thousands of them against a small group of courageous SAS. This was not a friendly invite from David Attenborough trying to show me the wonders of the deep. This was revenge for his country's humiliating defeat. This was payback. I was to be the English sacrifice. Oh right, that's kind of you, sweetheart, but I don't think I have my snorkel, do I, dear? I said in desperation. Mrs. Mussolini stepped into the breach again. She had seemed so calming at first. I was going off her rapidly. That is fine, you can borrow mine. Jesus, the whole world was ganging up against me. Think quickly, man. Oh, great, that's awfully kind. I took them from her. I hope you don't mind, though. I have a small cold sore just coming up on my lip. Have you had a herpes sore before? I don't believe you can catch it once you've had it once. I could not quite believe that I had asked this charming young lady whether she had had herpes before, but these were desperate times and desperate measures were called for. A look of disgust crossed her face. No, I have not. Oh, best not take the chance. I handed the snorkel and mask back. She snatched them gratefully to her bosom. I tell you what, we'll go and have lunch and I'll bring the stuff back with me this afternoon. Maybe we could go then. The husband answered me. Sure. I think he was still trying to work out whether I'd actually insulted his wife or been considerate towards her. Best to retreat whilst he was still confused. Well, lovely to meet you. Come on, you two, let's get some lunch and we'll meet up again later. I was really friendly and busied myself gathering the family's possessions. In no time at all, we were halfway down the beach. I felt I'd finessed that one quite well. She who governs was going to get the cold shoulder over lunch, but all in all, I thought that went rather well. When we returned to Blighty a fortnight later, we read in the papers that there had been 2 serious shark attacks that week in the Seychelles. Tiger sharks, apparently. I don't know whether it was the Italian man that we met. We never did find out. We did not speak to him again after that day. I saw him a couple of times, but managed to busy myself with my daughter and guided she who governs quickly away in the other direction. I hoped it was not him. No one deserves that. But I would not have been surprised, considering his cavalier attitude. Bloody idiot. Irrational fears indeed. Thank you.